argument has always been like, I just don't think he's world class. But again, world class is a different opinion. What I think to world class is, would I want my children to play like that player? That's what I think is world class. So if I was asking my kids who are going to be forwards, I would be saying I would like them to look at what Vinicius Junior does as opposed to Mohamed Salah.
What if I told you that being a legend sometimes isn't enough? What if I told you that breaking records, scoring goals, and carrying a nation on your back can still leave you drowning in criticism? That's the story of Mohamed Salah, a man with more EPL goals than Didier Drogba, more UEFA Champions League goals than Samuel Eto'o, and more goals than George Weah, a Ballon d'Or winner. Yet, despite all of this, one question keeps coming back like a shadow. But has he won the African Cup of Nations? It's the one thing his critics hold on to, as if all his other achievements mean nothing. But this story, this is bigger than just trophies. To understand why Salah's journey is more than just silverware, you have to go back. Back to a day when football in Egypt didn't just lose a game, it lost its soul. The day Egyptian football died. Passionate about football, kindly hit subscribe and never miss a great story. February 1st, 2012. A day that didn't just break hearts, it broke a nation. It was supposed to be just another football match in Port Said. Al Masry versus Al Ahly, two fierce rivals. But what unfolded that day was more than a game. It was a nightmare. The air was already tense. A year had passed since the overthrow of Hosni Mubarak during the Arab Spring. The streets of Egypt were still burning with unrest. And in the midst of the political chaos stood the Al Ahly ultras, once dismissed as hooligans, now seen as heroes. These were the same fans who had defended protesters from police brutality, standing at the front lines against the very system that sought to silence them. And then came the match. When the final whistle blew, Al Masry fans stormed the pitch after their 3-1 victory over Al Ahly. But this wasn't just an overexcited crowd celebrating a win, it was a calculated ambush. The police, the same force that once clashed with Al Ahly, supporters in the streets, stood by and did nothing. Away fans tried to escape, but the gates were locked, trapped, helpless. What followed was a massacre. 74 people lost their lives. Over 500 were injured. Fathers, sons, brothers. Gone, not because of a football rivalry, but because of a deeper, darker conflict that spilled onto the pitch. And the aftermath was devastating. The Egyptian League was cancelled. 2 years passed without a full season. 4 long years without fans in the stands. Top players fled the league. Their careers too precious to gamble with the broken remains of Egyptian football. Even the legendary Abu Trika, an icon of the game, was so disheartened that he considered retirement. The impact bled into the national team. This was a country that had just won 3 consecutive African Cup of Nations titles in 2006, 2008 and 2010. A dynasty in African football. But after the Port Said disaster, everything fell apart. Egypt failed to qualify for the 2012 AFCON, their first absence since 1978. The once mighty pharaohs were no longer feared. Egyptian football was shattered. But in the middle of this darkness, a spark emerged. From the ashes of the Port Said tragedy, Egyptian football seemed lifeless. The stadiums were silent, the league was gone, and the national team was a shadow of its former self. But even in the darkest moments, hope has a way of finding its voice. That hope came from a young boy named Mohamed Salah. His journey wasn't a fairy tale, it was a fight. At just 14 years old, Salah joined El Mokawloon, a club that was his only lifeline to professional football. But the road was anything but easy. His home was 4 hours away from the training ground, and every single day he would make the exhausting journey.
I read that you used to have to go a long way to train.
Yep.
When you were young.
It was like 4.5 hours or 5.5.
Every day?
Every day.
Wow.
No, just one way.
One way.
Yeah, so 9 hours a day, probably.
Really? 9 hours a day?
Yeah, so
By
you go
foot?
4.5 and you come back 4.5.
Yeah.
And I need to change like 4 transport, like cars, so transport. because you go with like one car for half an hour, another car for 2.5, another one for 1 hour, something like that.
Yeah.
So you have to, the way back is the same. So yeah,
that shows a great determination and a will to be a footballer. You must have absolutely really wanted.
I had nothing to do, nothing else to do. Just I'm playing football. I love to play football. It was my life. So
8 hours of travel for a few hours on the pitch. He sacrificed everything, including school. His classmates focused on their studies while Salah focused on his dreams. At first, he played as a left-back, a hard-working, fast player, but far from the goal-scoring machine the world would later know. But then, a tactical switch changed his life forever. One day, his coach pushed him further up the field, recognising the raw speed and sharp instincts hidden behind that defensive role. Salah became a forward, and everything clicked. The goals started coming. At just 15 years old, Salah became the youngest player to debut in the Egyptian league. His talent was undeniable. A teenager tearing through defences with a combination of pace, skill, and a hunger to prove himself. By 2012, he was unstoppable. At only 19, Salah had already racked up 7 goals and 3 assists in 15 matches. His name was becoming a whisper on every scout's lips. This was the next big thing. But just when it felt like he was on the edge of something great, tragedy struck. The Port Said disaster didn't just stop a match, it stopped a league. Egyptian football came to a standstill. The season was cancelled, and for young players like Salah, their progress was suddenly frozen. No matches, no fans, no future. It seemed like Salah's story would end before it even began. But then, a glimmer of hope. The Egyptian Olympic team came calling. A chance to play again, a chance to step onto a bigger stage, a chance to show the world that despite the ruins of Egyptian football, there was still something, someone worth believing in. Salah didn't hesitate. This was more than just football now. This was about carrying the hopes of a broken nation on his back, and he was ready. From the ruins of Egyptian football, Mohamed Salah found himself standing at a crossroads. His dream had survived the Port Said tragedy, and the Olympic call-up had given him a lifeline. But what came next was even more important. It all boiled down to one match, a friendly game between Egypt's under-23 team and Swiss giants FC Basel. It wasn't just another game, and it was an unspoken trial, a chance for Salah to prove that his talent could shine far beyond Egypt's shattered league. But when the match began, Salah wasn't even on the pitch. He started on the bench. He watched the first half unfold, a silent figure on the sideline, waiting, hoping. Then came the second half. The coach called his name. Salah stepped onto the field, and in just 45 minutes he changed everything. He scored, then scored again. 2 goals, a flash of speed, skill, and ruthless finishing. It wasn't just a performance, it was a statement. The Basel president sat stunned in the stands. He couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. Salah wasn't just quick, he was lightning. His movement was sharp, his dribbling deadly, and his hunger undeniable. It didn't take long. A week later, Salah received the call. Basel wanted him for a trial, but Salah didn't treat it like a trial. He treated it like a war. Every touch of the ball, every sprint, every shot. Salah played like a man who knew this was his only shot at escaping the broken league back home. And it worked. Less than a month after that friendly match, Mohamed Salah signed his first European contract with FC Basel. It was a new chapter. But Salah wasn't just satisfied with signing the contract. He made a promise, a quiet, powerful promise to himself. I will show them they signed a star. This wasn't about just making it to Europe. It was about proving that he belonged there. He wasn't just carrying his own dreams anymore. He was carrying the hopes of a nation that had lost everything. Salah wasn't running from Egypt's broken football system. He was running for it. And now, the world was about to see just how fast he could go. Mohamed Salah didn't come to Basel to blend in. He came to stand out. From the moment he stepped onto the pitch, you could feel it. He was different. The boy from Nagrig, who once travelled 8 hours a day just to train, was now tearing through European defences like they were made of paper. His first season, 21 goal contributions, goals, assists, moments of pure magic that made fans rise to their feet. But the Swiss League was just the beginning. Salah's real stage? Europe. In the Europa League, he became a nightmare for defenders. First, Tottenham in the quarter-finals, a blistering run, a cold-blooded finish. Then came Chelsea in the semi-finals, a team full of superstars, but Salah stole the show. His speed was devastating. The Chelsea backline could only watch as he disappeared into the distance. Suddenly the world was taking notice. As he rose in Europe, he never forgot Egypt. He carried his country through the World Cup qualifiers, scoring against Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Guinea. Every goal, every moment, he was Egypt's hope. He wasn't just playing, he was fighting. And for a moment it felt like he would drag Egypt to the World Cup, single-handedly. Then came disaster, the final playoff match against Ghana. Egypt lost 6-1, a crushing blow that left them humiliated and heartbroken. Salah stood there, helpless, as a nation's dream crumbled before his eyes. It wasn't just his loss, it was the loss of an entire country. For most players, this would have been the breaking point, but not Salah. He didn't stop, he didn't slow down. If anything, the pain only fueled him. While Egypt mourned another World Cup heartbreak, the football world was buzzing. Big clubs were watching. The boy who torched Tottenham and Chelsea, the boy who carried Egypt on his back, was no longer a hidden gem. He was a star in the making. And then, just as the world started to take notice, the phone rang. A single call. A moment that would change everything. In 2014, Mohamed Salah's phone rang. On the other end was Jose Mourinho. Chelsea wanted him. The Premier League, the biggest stage in world football, was calling. It felt like a dream come true. Salah didn't hesitate. He packed his bags and headed to Stamford Bridge, believing this was his moment to shine. But the reality was harsh. Chelsea's squad was overflowing with talent. Eden Hazard, Willian, Oscar, all established stars, all ahead of him in the pecking order. Minutes were hard to come by. In his first season, Salah played just 500 minutes, the equivalent of about 5 full matches stretched over months. By January 2015, he had made only 3 Premier League appearances. The frustration grew with every game he watched from the bench. Then came the breaking point, a League Cup match against Shrewsbury Town. It was supposed to be a chance for the fringe players to prove themselves, but Salah struggled. He looked lost, a shadow of the confident player who had dazzled for Basel. After the match, Mourinho didn't hold back. He publicly criticised Salah's performance. Not the team, not the system, but him, directly. It was a blow. The dream that once felt so close was slipping away. Salah realised something crucial. Staying at Chelsea meant rotting on the bench, watching his career stall. He couldn't let that happen. He needed a way out. And as the pressure mounted, one thought echoed in his mind. It's time to escape. Mohamed Salah knew he had to start over. Chelsea wasn't his place, not yet. So he took a leap of faith and joined Fiorentina on loan. It wasn't an easy move. For many, leaving the Premier League felt like a step backward. But for Salah, it was a chance to rebuild, to remind the world and himself of the player he truly was. When he arrived in Florence, he chose the number 74, a tribute to the lives lost in the Port Said tragedy. It was more than just a number. It was a reminder of his roots, his struggles, and the people he played for. And on the pitch, Salah let his football do the talking. He exploded into life, scoring 5 goals in his first 6 matches. Fans watched in awe as he tore through defences. A stunning solo goal against Juventus, a powerful strike against Inter Milan, and a crucial finish against Tottenham in the Europa League. Fiorentina, a team that had struggled to find its spark, began climbing the Serie A table. By the end of the season, they achieved one of their best finishes in years. And Salah was at the heart of it all. He wasn't the forgotten Chelsea player anymore. He was a rising star. Every goal, every assist was a statement. Not to prove a point to Mourinho or Chelsea, but to prove something to himself. From the ashes of Port Said, to the breakthrough at Basel, to the heartbreak at Chelsea. Mohamed Salah's journey was never a straight road, but he never stopped moving forward. After Fiorentina, Salah found his rhythm at Roma. He didn't just play, he dominated. With blistering pace and clinical finishing, he became one of Serie A's most dangerous attackers, scoring 34 goals and providing 24 assists in 2 seasons. But Salah wasn't done yet. In 2017, Liverpool came calling. And this time Salah didn't just join a club. He started a new era. He shattered records from the start. 32 Premier League goals in his first season, the most ever in a 38-game campaign, leading Liverpool to the UEFA Champions League final, winning the Golden Boot twice, becoming the face of a club, a city, and a continent. And beyond the records, Salah did something bigger. He reignited hope in Egypt. He scored the iconic last-minute penalty against Congo, sending Egypt to their first World Cup in 28 years. In that moment, it wasn't about clubs or trophies. It was about a nation's dream resting on his shoulders. The boy from Nagrig, who once travelled 4 hours every day for training. The teenager whose career was nearly derailed by the Port Said tragedy. The young man who refused to be broken by Chelsea's rejection. He rose above it all. Salah's story isn't just about goals or glory. It's about resilience. It's about carrying the weight of a nation and still running faster, still fighting harder. So the next time someone questions Mohamed Salah's legacy, remind them of the struggle, the sacrifices, and the comeback. Because Salah's journey wasn't easy, but that's exactly what makes it legendary. Your journey through football's greatest moments starts here. Kindly hit subscribe and join the journey.